Welcome to RPG Talk. This is episode 7 of season 2. I am one of your hosts, Jason Detman, your other host here.
Hello, I'm David Nisler-Kibane. Welcome to RPG Talk.
This week, I think we're talking about Storium because we have been trying it out and we're somewhat confused and trying to figure it out. Would you agree, David?
I would agree with that. I am in 3-ish games as a player for all 3, and I don't really know what the heck I'm supposed to be doing.
Has your other game started?
No, that's why I said 3-ish.
Okay, so you're pretty much just
Evan.
You've only played moves in the space game.
Yeah. So Evan Turner is GMing the other one, the 3rd-ish one, in which we're playing a pulp space-ish game, and then you're running a spacey game, and then you're running a superhero game.
Yes.
Would you like to share with the listeners the background of your 2 games?
Sure. The first one is called Seize the Stars. Well, first let me say Storium is a sort of play-by-post platform that kickstarted like last month or maybe early this month, and is currently in beta. So you can't just go to Storium and sign up yet. You need to find someone to invite you to a game who already is signed up. It's card-based, and it's got some pre-generated worlds, although you can also create your own, although that's a bit more work. And yeah, it's interesting. I think, it requires more playing around with to see exactly what's going on and how it works. But all right, so back to the 2 games I'm running, or soon to be running. One is Seize the Stars. It's a space game where you're Star Trek-y like explorers off wandering around trying to see what's out there in the universe and get into trouble. I'm thinking, I am definitely playing towards an original Star Trek feel, but I don't know. We're still early days. We just started scene 2, and one of the players is really bogged down with work at the moment, so she is not responding. And one of the players hasn't responded at all, so I don't know what's going on with that.
That was the red shirt, right?
What's that?
The other player was the red shirt?
He is the security officer.
Yep, red shirt.
So, right. And then I started a superhero game recently to try some other experimental stuff because I was thinking maybe something where the players have a little more power, so they maybe giving their characters more power will make the players feel a little more empowered to describe things and take control of the narrative. But we'll see how that works out. It's based on a game world that I was noodling around with when I worked publishing supplementary material for Mutants and Masterminds back in the day, and I found it to be an interesting superhero world that I just never got to play around enough with, so I figured this would be a good chance to goof off with it.
Awesome.
What is your feeling on Storium?
I feel like it's still really early to give a good critical response, but I feel like I used to play a lot of and run a lot of play-by-post games, Amber games, back in the day, and this has more structure than those ever did, but I also feel like I don't really know or how I'm supposed to play the game. I don't feel like I understand the turns and things. I now understand you're supposed to spend a card on every move you make, which makes me feel like I'm in a board game Like, if I just want to post like internal thinking, or I, I feel really restricted to like having to spend a card to do anything in the game, or maybe I'm misinterpreting how to play because it's all hosted on the Storium website. So that's where all of our major communications are going through. Um, so I still haven't figured out how I'm supposed to play, really, except spending a card on challenges, which, I don't know, I feel like I'm playing, I feel like I'm playing a board game that has narrative elements attached to it, if that makes any sense. It's like, it's like a looser choose your own adventure sort of thing.
Well, I think some of that is the constraint that we have coming to the platform as role playing gamers. Because I've looked around at other games, and a lot of like people are all over the map on how they're doing the game and how they're doing their turns and things like that. Um, and it seems to me that the games that people where the game is progressing at, like faster and people are more interested and more engaged with the game. And I'm completely biased here because I have no idea. Like all I can tell is people are writing a lot of stuff and like they seem more into it than what we've got. We've got smaller, very task-based turns
Mm-hmm.
um, in the Seize the Stars game. So I feel like you know as a group in Seize the Stars, we're sort of approaching this as a task-based role-playing game. Okay, you do this. Tell me what happens in response. That kind of thing, right?
Is there a way to change it to a different way of handling that, conflict or otherwise?
Well, unfortunately, there's no way to change the platform. There's no way to change. Like each scene has a conflict that you know. Well, I don't. I mean, I guess each.
Well,
You're,
what I'm
I'm not
saying is,
required to. I'm not required to um, place an obstacle on a scene. I don't think. I'll have to experiment with that. It's possible just to put a goal in, and the goal could be like, talk about your feelings or whatever. But
but,
it seems like
but would you still need to spend a card to do something?
that might be true.
Because that seems kind of, I mean, obviously it varies from game to game, but it's like I have, in the space game, I have some gear. How is that going to help me talk to someone about their feelings? I have things I feel like I'm very much um, based on a certain approach for my character, and
Okay.
I know that you get wild cards and things can change, and so maybe that's how you get around that, right?
Right. Yeah, because you've got wild cards and those can be anything.
Right.
So, um, I mean, again, I think part of my problem is that I'm hindered because I have not played in a game, so I
Mhm.
don't. I haven't seen things from the player side. For example, I was under the impression when I was setting up the Universe Zero game that you could play your nature as a card, but apparently you can't. And I didn't realize that because I haven't played in a game. You see what I'm saying?
What do you mean, like if you're like a mutant or whatever?
Right. So if you have the mutant nature,
Hmm.
that's just like your archetype. That's just who you are.
Right.
You apparently can't play that as a card in a scene, and I didn't realize that.
Is that something that you can change?
I don't think so. I think the system uh, is the way it is, and we have to sort of. I think that's our creative constraint. We have to play within that constraint to see like how can we can move the game along.
Um, hmm. Well, you can't. you add more categories, more card categories? As the
No, there are there are obstacles, assets, goals, and there's another thing, subplots. I think maybe. So, I mean, there are like four things on my end that I have control over when I set a scene,
hmm
and then you guys have your cards.
Well, that's what I was wondering. Like, could you change the player character cards at all to be different than what they start out as?
Um, well, okay. So when you say that, do you mean like the specific cards that you have in on your character? Can I change those cards, or can I make other cards available to your character?
Okay, if you make other cards available to our character, what does that change?
It doesn't change the cards categories, but it does. I could like make up new like subplots. I can make up new strengths and weakness cards that characters can use in a scene.
Okay,
So you
I
could you
guess.
could have you could have like I mean if we went kind of hill folk on it, we could make all of the strengths and weaknesses like wants and needs,
hmm
and make it a very social game with uh, much less task resolution type behavior. But I think the problem is you're still going to have to play a card, so you're still going to have to play one of those strengths or weaknesses
Yeah,
to to get anything done in a scene, to take your turn in a scene.
and I don't think that's going to work. I think those are going to have to remain narrative. Hmm. Well, I'm still interested enough to continue trying it.
Sure.
I guess yes, it's just like any game that's new, you have to figure out how it's going to work. I just I guess what I was wondering if you could rewrite the obstacles to be like we were saying earlier, like more open or more like conflict resolution based rather than task resolution based. If there's anything like that.
Well, okay. So here's the thing. So going back to the way other people have played, like how I've seen other people playing the game by looking at other games, um, there are there are several games that I've looked at where people are very much treating it more uh, as conflict rather than task resolution. But they're also being much more. Um, I don't want to say narrative. That doesn't seem the right word. Like they're being more authorial, right? They're being like they're writing their character. They're writing their character's inner thoughts, but they're also writing what their character says.
Mm-hmm.
They're taking more control of the story in what they say, and what is going on in their surroundings. Um, the thing that I've noticed is that people that and I have no idea who like anybody I don't know or haven't met even online, like what their background is, but it seems like the people that I do know who have more of a gaming background seem to end up shooting more towards this task oriented, like play the card, get past the obstacle. They're much less authorial. Um, but the people who are more authorial are more willing to, like, they bring in NPCs in the scene who the narrator hasn't introduced. So they're like, oh, here's an NPC, I want to talk to them, or whatever, and they describe they describe what the NPC says. They interact with the NPC. They I don't think I've seen anybody like give internal monologue for an NPC, but they've certainly, are more engaged with, creating the fabric of the scene than than just giving that all over to the game master.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
It does. I guess what I'm wondering is if um, we don't feel like we don't feel like we have the authority or the trust or the latitude to do those things yet for whatever reason in these games.
Okay.
So what can we do to change that so that we can do these things?
Well, for example, in the second scene for Seize the Stars, I
Mm-hmm.
tried giving like just shoving more power at you as the players
Mm-hmm.
by like framing the scene such that like you go into the ship, you're in this maze. What do you find? I want you to tell me what you found in your explorations of the ship. So so in that case, I guess I could have put in like an out of game message at the bottom saying like, hey, this is where I'm saying, go out, you decide what you find. This is what like tell me, like this is your story as well.
I wonder if because we didn't know what this game was about, like the Storium platform, that if just being very blunt like that for a while might be a good suggestion until we get the hang of it.
Sure.
Like just so that we keep thinking, oh yeah, we do this, and then eventually we'll maybe get into that habit of changing our patterns. So I can see myself feeling very cautious um, without knowing that we are supposed to generate the stuff. Okay. All right. I'll have to think about that. Yeah. Do you want to talk about Seize the Stars or your other game specifically?
Um, I don't really have. I mean, like the for me, there's like at the moment I don't have anything really specific to talk about because for Seize the Stars it was really like I intended to be almost improv, like, hey, we're gonna do this Star Trekky thing. I'm gonna throw you in medias res, and we're just gonna goof around and see how the game works, and try and get somewhere and see if it's interesting.
Okay.
For Seize the Stars, I'm sorry.
That's interesting. Um, okay, this is like way off topic, but like, so like, say someone suggests something, like generate something, and one or more of the other players is having trouble getting invested in that. How do you foresee handling that?
How do I see handling like if someone is not?
Say something is written and it doesn't jive with the expectations for the setting or the game or something. Is that just going to be like where you send out a note to ask the player to revise the post, or how do you want to handle that?
Well, I mean, I think that's the intention of the revise request is like, hey, that's not really within the purview of this game, or, but I mean, but you're right, it's early days, so none of us really have an idea what, you know, like really, I'm beginning to feel like, we need to have like this email conversation about what the game is going to be about, almost like the microscope palette. We need to set up the microscope palette before we start the game. We do not, we're not going to include magic in this game.
Right. That's yeah. Like we turn the corner and there's a werewolf in space. It's like really, and it's those. Yeah, I kind of feel like we need that discussion before we start a game, just to make sure that we're all kind of on. And maybe that's just something that's included in the game description. I don't know.
Right. But I mean, at the same time, I've seen game descriptions like that,
Mm-hmm.
and they personally turn me off because I'm looking at like 5 pages
Oh no, no.
of
Well,
stuff I have to wade through before I even,
into the game. Sure. Well, maybe just like a short, like Google or Skype or some, yeah, just a short discussion. I don't know. Maybe we're just overthinking this.
It could be. I mean, I think it's also just a matter of, again, it's a new thing. We're not familiar with it, right?
Yeah. So
Okay.
the other game, what is it called again?
Universe Zero?
Universe Zero. So now that I have you online, and you're very familiar with the setting, as you mentioned before. Uh,
Well, sure.
so Chicago was destroyed, and a bunch of heroes and villains were also destroyed with that, right?
Right.
But we're going to be playing in New York, and I believe you had mentioned that you didn't want the Chicago things to be what the game is about, correct?
It's not the intended focus of the game, no.
Okay.
I mean, I could see, once we become comfortable with the characters
Mhm.
and the characters are, more comfortable with the setting, certainly exploring what's going on, what happened with Chicago, might be on the table.
Okay.
But I don't think it's, I'm thinking this is a early, this is Batman Year One, okay? Like there, maybe something, maybe the League of Assassins is happening over here, but we're not going to know about it for a while.
Sure.
I mean, does that seem reasonable?
No, it does. Um, is it a gritty superhero game, or um, what's the kind of? I'm searching for like a tone or
Um, so it's definitely more Silver Age than Golden Age,
which
uh,
means what?
which means that uh, heroes have flaws. Um, there are repercussions to actions. It's not it's more the ongoing storylines of like that thing that happened a while ago is going to come back around and maybe affect you again later, rather than like, oh, I punched this guy in the head and we never see him again unless he's popular with the readers, in which case he comes back and I punch him in the head again and then maybe later he'll come back, but we never talk about what happened last week, right? I mean, um, I don't, I think gritty level is going to be a lot dependent on the characters, right? I mean, I'm not going to force you to like slog through this like horrific nightmare of being a a hunted person, or like terribly haunted by your deeds, if that's not the kind of play that you want, right? I don't want to force that anyway. Like if you want to be the happy-go-lucky Spider-Man like character, I'm totally down with that. If you want to be, the hunted, the seeking revenge, like Batman, out for justice but also for blood kind of character, then I'm down with that too. Like how those are going to interface, we're going to have to figure that out. But
Okay. Uh, do we want to talk about my character?
sure. Do we want to talk about it on the cast?
I don't have a preference.
Okay, hit me up.
All right. So, not really knowing what I'm doing, I made my character. Um, I have come most recently from the idea of gathering together and making your characters as a group. This sort of solo creation thing is something I used to do. So, um, what are your thoughts on my character, or do you not have any at this point?
Um, well, my thoughts about your character. Your character is an orphan whose dad is apparently a bad guy, and he's living in New York. And I wasn't really sure whether you were going for a Spider-Man-like vibe or more, what kind of. I wasn't really sure where you were going here and what kind of story you wanted to tell with this character, right?
I do not know.
Right.
I'm having a difficult time determining that. So is I don't know. I guess I feel like not sure what direction to take.
Okay. So the question is, do you want me to? Well, I mean, we could. I guess we'll find out through play, right? As the narrator, I'll set up things for you to interact with, and we'll see how your character develops. But I mean, I don't know how that's going to work in this game.
So you're being very liberal in terms of what you're willing to accept as character concepts, is what it sounds like, correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So we have a mystic character.
Yes.
And we have my character's a mutant, and we're waiting for how many more players?
Right now, I was intending to just do the two of you because the way the platform works right now, it's not possible for me to have you each in a separate scene and then slowly bring you together.
Oh, okay.
So what I've seen is that you can essentially, it's kind of like a hack of the platform. You can write a scene with two separate goals or obstacles, and then just narrate them as separated. So I can narrate you in one location, the other character in another location. You each have separate goals or obstacles, and then you sort of narrate in tandem or in parallel.
Yeah, parallel storytelling.
Right. So that way, you both see what's going on with the other character, but you're just not together. And hopefully we can, if we do that for a few scenes, we can get to the point where the two of you meet, and then, maybe you work together, maybe you don't. Hopefully you do.
Well, there's the potential for flashbacks too, right?
Yeah, right. No, there's the potential for flashbacks. Yeah. Although I don't know how that would work in this. I guess it's just setting up a scene, right?
Right.
I just say this is a flashback scene.
Exactly, and the other player could either play NPC characters, or if their character's not there, or they could be doing something else while the other PC is doing a flashback.
Right. Right. No, that's a good idea. So yeah, I mean that's where I am. I mean, again, I'm not going in with a big grandiose idea of what the story's going to be. I'm going in with hey, let's get some characters together who are going to be superheroes, and let's see where the game goes. Let's improv this.
All right. Well, I'm really excited to play the superhero game because I haven't played a superhero game in forever. And when I was picking the type? What do they call that category?
Nature.
It reminded me almost exactly of the Marvel face rip categories.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Do you have a copy of that?
I don't think I do.
Oh wow! Yeah, that was the very first role playing game I ever played. So yeah, there was very much archetype based. You're gonna be Iron Man, or you're gonna be Spider-Man, or you're gonna be Wolverine. It's very much categorized like that.
Huh. I basically opened up three different superhero games that I've got and was like, okay, how what does nature mean for this particular game versus what does your strengths and weaknesses and whatever means. So
So what were the major differences between this and the other two games?
uh, this is what do you mean? This and the other two games?
Up three different games.
Oh, I just kind of like grabbed things and was like, oh yeah. Well, I mean, I use them just as to like hit me in the head and remind me of the superhero genre.
Oh, you weren't. Oh, okay, I thought you meant that you looked at three different Storium superhero games, and
No,
this
no,
is the
I took three role playing games off my shelf
one. Okay.
and said, how can I represent a superhero game using this platform?
So did you use Marvel Heroic?
I used I looked at Marvel Heroic. I looked at Mutants and Masterminds.
Mm-hmm.
I looked at the Marvel Diceless game that came out. Actually, I looked at something else too, but I don't remember what it was.
Oh.
But I think Mutants and Masterminds probably defined my ideas for the game more than anything, which is probably why we ended up playing in Universe Zero. So
No, that's fine. No, yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. And I will get back to the Seas of Stars with a more Thorian capacity, I hope. Okay.
all right, well, I think we've gone a little bit over our planned time this time around. So why don't we stop here?
Sounds great.
Okay, and we can give updates next time.
Sure.
All right. Thanks again for joining us, everybody.
Play more games.